Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Aaron Marcus, and I can't wait to get started with today's workshop. We have an incredible guest, and let me read a little intro so you learn more about him. Dave Manchip is the owner of Edit Plus. He's been editing demo reels for nearly 20 years, and you're going to have to sit down for this one. He has edited over 15,000 demos. He studied biology at UCLA, but instead of becoming a doctor, he decided to embrace his creative side. And he started playing music, and he was singing, performing in nightclubs and musical theaters around the world. And today, he uses his musical sensibilities in his approach to editing videos. Every project, whether it's a demo reel, a trailer, a promo for a film, he uses a certain rhythm and tempo that he's gained from performing music. The editing needs to deliver, it's all based on the expectations of the viewing audience, and we're going to be talking a lot more about that. Dave's approach with demos is to craft a tool designed to achieve a specific goal, whether it's getting new representation, advancing a casting tier to become a series regular, or just getting that first network credit. His client list includes numerous celebrities, network series regulars, and Oscar, Emmy, Tony, and Golden Globe winners. His company, like I said before, it's Edit Plus. They enjoy a business relationship with Breakdown Services. They use the AirCheck service from Actors Access. Dave Manchip is an award-winning editor working with his wife, Kathy Carey. He has produced and edited several award-winning shorts as well. You'll see the website to get to Edit Plus, but let me just tell it to you. It is edit+.tv. So, Dave, welcome to this workshop. I am so excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Aaron. I look forward to speaking with your people.
Cool. Okay, so here is, the place that I think we should get started. If there's an actor he's thinking about or she's thinking about putting together a reel, I think that the very, very first thing that you absolutely need to think about is, before you even put the reel together, what are some of the things that you should be thinking about even before you contact an editor or somebody who's going to be helping you with the editing process?
Sure. The problem, or the thing that happens for most actors, they know that they need headshots. They've been told that they need video so that they can submit samples of their work. But an approach that I use in interviewing a new client, and it's also in interviewing directors or even writers that are working on projects, and there are two questions that sort of have serviced me in just about every aspect of life. It's, why are you doing this? And what do you want to have happen because you've done this? If you don't answer the first question specifically enough, you're just going to end up with the answer to your question. I need a demo reel. Okay. Or I need a scene, or I need to get representation. Okay, but is it the right material to get you to achieve what it is that you had in mind to begin with? I want to get with an agent or manager that casts people in the kinds of projects that I'm right for, that has those kinds of relationships, and it's about crafting and tailoring a tool, in my case, demo reels, that will help you achieve that.
So would you say then there might be a different approach that you would use as an editor? Because, I mean, that's one of the things that you do. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the other things that Edit Plus offers besides editing. But it seems like it's really important for the talent, for the actor, to be thinking, okay, so I want to put this together because I want to find representation or I want to find a manager. And you would also use a different frame of mind with editing if somebody said to you, I need to get more work. You know, I have an agent, I have a manager, but I'm just not, you know, getting the kinds of jobs that I want. I want to do more film work. So that's the kind of information that you need as an editor before you actually get started working on a project with a client.
Yeah, that's correct, Aaron. You know, demos have evolved in the period of time that I've been doing them. When I first started editing, it was common for an actor to have a demo that could be 7 or 8 minutes long, and that was a period of time when casting directors actually scheduled general open interviews with actors and would set aside 15-minute time slots in their calendar once a week to meet new actors. They just don't have that kind of time anymore. And in the period of time that I've been editing, demos have changed from being 7 or 8 minutes long down to today. A general demo is maybe 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes long, and the usefulness of a demo has also evolved and sort of become a few different kinds of video submissions. The general demo, the one that shows your range, that shows samples of drama and comedy, typically is best suited when you are seeking representation. People that will have time to review something that is, you know, up to 5 minutes long, that shows your range. A casting director today doesn't have the time to wait to see the thing that inspires them to bring you in. If they're casting a nervous homeless man, they want to see a performance that matches that immediately. And video has evolved to the place, not unlike the way actors have used headshots for a long time. You may have 5 or 6 or 10 different headshots, but when you submit on a part, you only submit the one that's right. And today, a lot of actors are using individual clips for their performance submissions. And then with some of my more experienced and clients that have unique, very special opportunities, we'll create something that we call a custom reel that allows them to submit material specifically suited and tailored to the particular casting opportunity that presents itself. And we've been very, very successful in helping people book jobs when we've created a customized demo for a unique submission.
You know, you excuse me, Dave, for 1 second, because you brought up something that's really interesting that I really hadn't thought about. Like when you were just talking about the length of a demo reel. I mean, I've heard everything from a minute to a minute and a half, and typically I'm thinking of that is going to be presented to a casting director or maybe a director on a project. But, you know, when you're talking about with an agent that sometimes that demo reel could be longer, you know, it makes more sense to me because the agent is the one who potentially could be making a tremendous amount of money with a new client, with a new actor, and they will spend, you know, more time really researching and studying and looking at somebody's reel. But for the casting director, I mean, they're getting paid, you know, by you know, production, and so they are more in tune to, let me find somebody who's perfect for this role, as opposed to somebody who I want to spend a career with. And so it's a very interesting point as far as how long you should have your demo reel. Because and I guess it goes back to the very first thing that you said. It depends on what's the purpose of the demo reel. Is it to try to get representation, or is it to try to get an audition for a specific role? I just thought that was an interesting distinction you made.
Yeah, let me address that also, Aaron. Back to actors and their expectations and stuff. I'm married to an actor myself. She also writes and directs and so forth, but she's an actress, and actors often are having to manage their finances in a way that requires them to uh, be be very aware of how and where they spend their money. They need headshots. They need to be in class. They need a demo reel. They have to do their own taped auditions. I mean, it's really a lot of an investment, and so often actors will, when they make their decision to create a demo reel, they want a demo that is going to help them get an agent, and then it's going to help them with casting, and they want one size fits all. And usually my response to that is that if you want something that is a one size fits all, the same way you would buy a suit off the rack, it's not going to fit you as well, and you're not going to look and present yourself as well as if you were in a tailored suit. You have to sort of decide, what is it that I need to accomplish right now? I need new representation so that I can get more work. Great. So you should focus on creating a tool that can help you get that representation. Once you meet with your new reps, they will then advise you as to the way that they like to share material. Some of them may use a short, what we call sometimes a speed reel, something that's a minute or a minute and a half long. Some may prefer having a drama reel and a comedy reel for use in submissions, and others may be more comfortable in having individual clips. I would always defer to the way that your reps want to do things. Because once you sign with your rep, if your rep isn't happy with the tools that you provided them, they're going to be less inclined to use them. So the first thing, and you have to look at what your objectives are. Your career is like a staircase. You can't go from the ground floor to the top of the staircase in a single step. You've got to take it one step at a time. And if the first step is to get an agent or a manager, create a tool that can help you accomplish that. Then, after meeting with them and getting their input and advice, create the tool that you can together make effective casting submissions for yourself.
And I guess the other thing too is, when you're talking about different types, depending on what kind of work you're trying to get, people will also have a commercial reel that might solely be TV spots. And there are people that might put together, depending on what kind of work they do, maybe industrial films, which are also called training films or corporate films, and they might have a separate reel just for that. And maybe if you are a spokesperson, maybe you do political TV commercials, you could have a separate one for that as well. So I guess, once again, and we'll probably keep referencing this, it depends on what your goals are for that reel, and that's how you want to put things together. But I do like the idea too of, if you're trying to get representation, then this is what you want to put together, and then sit down with your agent to see how to take it from there. Now, if somebody is, let's say they're just getting started and they haven't had the fortune to do TV spots or do any television shows or do any films, and I know like one of the questions that came up to me that was sent in that they wanted me to ask you, but I'll just ask it right now. What are your thoughts about, just recording a monologue or a scene from a play and using that on your demo reel?
This is a question I get asked fairly often, because the challenge for a lot of actors that are very early in their careers, they are sort of at the mercy of others producing something and then getting hired in that and then waiting whatever period of time to get their footage, and maybe they'll get it and maybe they won't, and they aren't in control of what that's going to look like, and it can be a very frustrating period of time because people are anxious to move things forward. what I would suggest is most effective, and a way that an actor might be more proactive and more productive in their efforts if they don't have network television credits or professionally done content, is to consider filming something themselves, but rather than choosing something from class that they've been working on with someone else, rather than deciding to rely on a company that might have a service to sell, like we'll write a scene for you and film it, and we shoot on the red camera and all that other stuff. Those can be very, very expensive, and also not necessarily help you accomplish what it is that you're hoping to achieve. For many actors that don't have a network credit, that haven't been cast in any independent projects, if you sit and look at what would be my goal if I was just getting started, what would be my goal? What would I want to have happen in my career? I'd want to have an opportunity to get my first network credit, my first co-star credit. Well, a co-star is typically going to be a fairly short little scene. So if you go out and shoot a 5-minute scene with another partner, that scene isn't going to be representative of the kind of work you're hoping or expecting to do for a casting director. What a casting director wants to see is something that more closely matches the kind of next step that you're asking them to put you in. If one were to decide what kind of content one should prepare, or what could one do, my favorite type of scene to consider is what I would describe as an interrogation scene. The reason for that, it's a very simple construct. It's you sitting at a table or standing in a doorway. Someone has come to get information from you, or accusing you of something, or having you provide information to them. Now, this particular scenario works both for co-stars and, in many procedurals, guest stars. And if you take a look at how often the I'm here to ask you a question scene is done in television, it's actually quite a lot. It also isn't limiting with the kind of character that you might portray in that scene. If you're a very serious character, you can answer the questions in a very serious way. I have a client who is a comedian, and one of the scenes that we use on his demo is actually an interrogation scene from The Closer, where he played the owner of a storage facility, and he has sent a box to the police that had a dead body in it, and he knew it. He knew it was a dead body, and he was relishing in his performance, and you can see the comedic element that he brings to his portrayals in how he responded in the scene.
That's a very interesting idea, and I guess some of the other beautiful things about that is you don't need a big cast. Basically, it sounds like it's possible you can just have it over the shoulder shot of the person asking questions, to you, and the whole thing could be, just close-ups of you.
Absolutely. I would suggest that this type of scene can be the most beneficial to an actor that does not have any other material. People will ask me, how much material do I need? Do I need a comedy, a drama? Do I need something emotional and crying? No, to get work, all you need is one good piece of tape. That one good piece of tape, if it represents what you do best, it can help you move forward in your career to get you something that actually pays you money. With regard to the the scene that one might shoot for themselves, don't get overly concerned about needing to shoot it on the red camera and have fancy equipment and stuff. You start introducing a lot of other considerations as far as cost and editing support and different kinds of things. If you can get something that is shot cleanly with good sound, sound is very, very important. Shot cleanly with good sound, that is sufficient to help you move your career forward.
And you know what's also really interesting with that is that, especially with that kind of scene, you can really show the life of this character and see the changes that take place. From the very beginning of, you know, somebody who's not going to give up any information at all, and then as the scene continues, the person's starting to squirm a little bit more, and then all of a sudden you get to a point where, okay, you know, the jig is up, you got me, you're going to spill the beans or whatever it is. So you can really see this arc taking place. And once again, it's a very simplistic kind of setup, but you can show a lot of life in this character, which is exactly what you want to do, whether you're trying to get representation, or actually even if you're trying to, get an audition through casting directors. I think that's a wonderful idea, and you know, something else that people can do, and actually I'm not going to mention the director's name, although it's probably okay, but there was somebody that I know became a very famous director. When I was in college and I was taking film classes, this person did not have any money to shoot a film. So what he did was he signed up as a student for an introductory film class. And then he had access to not only all the equipment at the school, but he also had access to the sound people, the editors, lighting people who were also teaching at this college. And that's how he shot his first couple movies. And so it seems like another way of trying to get it shot and have it look good is to contact some colleges or universities or even community colleges in your particular area and see if they have film classes. And if so, you might be able to find students who would love to have an opportunity to work with actors. And you know, the worst case scenario is that, you know, it just doesn't look good enough to use, in which case you got a chance to practice and you got a chance to, you know, look at the final version, and then you can make some adjustments if you need to. In the best case scenario, you might have just gotten this thing shot, you know, at no cost, which, you know, would be a wonderful way to at least try to get your foot in the door and to get some experience being in front of a camera.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Aaron. Today, because of technology, there is very little barrier to being able to create content. And if what you're needing is a sample of something, don't let the fact that you don't have or don't know or don't own, the right gear or equipment. Today, the iPhone and iPads that are marketed have absolutely fabulous cameras built into the devices, and the sound is pretty good, and they can easily record a short scene that you can then edit on your personal editing software. You know, a scene for an actor that's just beginning their career doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be more than 30 or 45 seconds. And in that period of time, you know, if somebody sets up the interrogation, we'll go back to that scenario, with a single question, it's sufficient for the actor to then go through all of their emotional change, deliver some lines, and have it be the end of a scene, and let that be enough. Don't try and overthink it or overproduce it. Have it be a complete, concise performance. It doesn't need to be, everything that you can do. That's when they're casting for a co-star part, you're only going to get to do one little thing. Remember, you're trying to satisfy the needs of whoever your audience is. And if your audience for the next step is a casting director who can cast you saying 3 lines on a network show, show them that you can do that. Don't try and show them that you can be a lead in something and that you can do an action sequence and do martial arts and dance a jig and all those other kinds of things. So, these kinds of scenes also are not limited by age. Even a mother asking a child, "Where were you last night?" That's an interrogation. So open your mind up to the possibilities there, and don't limit yourself by any technical constraints that you might have.
Actually, and that's a really interesting point, because at first when you were saying interrogation, well, I'm thinking, okay, either it's police related, it's military, it's terrorism, but absolutely, it could be mother, daughter, father, son, it could be anything like that. And I guess the other thing that's really nice too is, so let's say if you put something together that's 30 seconds or 40 seconds, and it looks good, it sounds good, then you can always try to find something else that you think will also help sell you well, that's in your category, that makes sense for you. And I guess maybe that is another way to start building up your reel by, you'll start editing down that first one. Once that's been around, and let's say you've gotten an agent at that point or a manager, and then you start shooting some other things, and you can start slowly building up, a 60-second or, a 90-second reel by, just using other material. But now, even for that initial one, though, any suggestions on where people would actually find the material to use? Because unless you are a really strong writer, my guess is that you don't want to just write something yourself unless it's great, because if it's not great, then people will start focusing in on the poorly written copy, and then you've lost people from watching your performance. So, I mean, do people use something from a film, something from a play? My guess would be I'd be concerned of grabbing something from a well-known movie that was done by a well-known actor, because then everybody's going to start comparing you to that particular performance.
You're absolutely right, Aaron. That's a danger, particularly with very well-known work, which often happens with scenes or plays that you're doing in class. You're working in class to learn something, and that's what the goal of class is. So that scene that you're working on is supposed to be teaching you either how to address a particular kind of performance or how to get into a particular kind of character. It is not intended as being a showcase for you. And a mistake that a lot of actors make is that they think that they're saving time and money by using material that they're already working on. That material was chosen to help you learn something as opposed to showcase you in a particular way. I think for an actor who's just getting started, it would benefit them greatly from figuring out what is the product that they have to sell. Are they the creepy guy, or are they the ingenue, or are they the best friend? And it's not enough to just have a simple label like that. It is much more beneficial and much more helpful if you are you're the disingenuous best friend, the one that will smile to your face but stab you in the back, the one that's nice enough to be around, that you would want them as part of the group, but that always has a hidden agenda. That's a very much more specific kind of character than just the best friend. The best friend is generic. The other one is very specific. And if you can begin to develop and figure out and find out what it is about you that's special, then you start to have a product that can be marketed as an actor. The confusion that a lot of young actors have is that they've gone to school, they've been in class, they've studied, they've taken lessons, and they come out the other end, and it's like, okay, I'm a dramatic actor, and I can do comedy, and I cry, and I do martial arts, and I do all of this other kind of stuff. I can do action things. I can do everything. Okay, that's maybe what your training has taken you through, but what is it that you do best? Because if you focus on the thing that you do best and just work at promoting that one thing, ultimately you are going to become an easier product to cast and have a better opportunity to have a marketable future.
You know, and it's so interesting because I know so many times actors will say, you know, I don't want to be stereotyped. You know, I can play it all. I can do everything. And the reality is that very, very few people really can get cast to play many things that are outside their type. You know, typically if you are a movie star, yeah, you can play against type because people will still pay to see you. But you know, for most, you know, most of us, there's a certain look that you have, there's a certain feel that you have, there's a certain body type that you have, and we all get stereotyped. And I mean, that's just the way that the world works. It's not a negative thing. I mean, I like that concept because, and it's not to say I can't play other things, but you know, there are certain things that people see me as, and that's how I get cast. And you can actually have a really good career playing certain types that fit you best. And so I think you really came up with a great point of understanding that, and that's what you need to have on your reel. Don't try to go in with this huge ego to say to everybody, I can play everything. I can do anything because I've gone through school and, you know, I've been told that I've got such a wide range. You know, hit them with what is best for you. But as far as getting the right material, I mean, do you go through film scripts that maybe aren't as well known and maybe done by actors who, you know, everybody, you know, hasn't seen? Or how do you go about finding the material itself?
Sure, and thanks for getting me back on track, Aaron. You had asked that question. The way that I would approach it is the following, and I would make a recommendation or suggestion that if somebody is wanting to film their own little scene, that they don't have the ego to think that they're going to be able to improvise it and have it be real because they're thinking it up on the spot. Very often in that particular type of scenario, you can see the thinking process, you can see the acting on the actor's face, and it's not something that you would want to necessarily use. That's also a danger if you're shooting a indie film and working with other actors. Often with improvisation, people who are less skilled are so anxious to share what they just thought of that they start talking over everybody else so that they can get their lines in, and that is counterproductive to getting you a quality finished product. The place that I would go to find a scene to share would be basically to look at the market that you're targeting. If you're looking at wanting and needing to get your first television credit, I'd watch television, and I would look at it with new eyes. I would look at things and say, oh, there, I'm recognizing that's an interrogation. The mom is asking the little kid who ate the cookies. That's an interrogation. Was my husband in here today picking up the laundry? Um, and it doesn't have to just be a procedural. There are a lot of different scenarios. Who's our next patient? Nurse, tell me about that. So any type of information-driven scenario, if you can start spotting and recognizing those scenes, then you can start getting an idea of the kinds of scenes that that are available for you to be cast in. Then what I would do is take a look at something that you like or admire. Boy, that was a really, really good scene. That's something that I would like to do. And don't try and redo that scene, but get an idea of what the construction of the scene is, and the question and answer can actually be a question about something that's not the same. So who are the guys that raped you? Maybe it's something different. But use that as sort of a way of modifying a well-written scene and keep the rhythm of the responses very similar, so that you're not trying to provide a run-on sentence of everything that you might know and everything that you might do and all of the emotions and everything that you might put into rewriting a scene. Just use sort of the style and construct and approach that writers are using that are actually creating network content.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess the same thing would hold true for a film. If you're
Absolutely.
interested in trying to get film work, then study, a lot of films. And once again, a lot of times people like to use pieces that were done, by famous actors, and that's just I think it's a very dangerous way to go, and it's not going to be in your best interest. It's already been done, and it's been done really well. Why try to compare yourself to somebody else? And there certainly is plenty of stuff.
You're absolutely right, Aaron. Not only are you setting yourself up to be compared to these individuals who have careers and resumes that are far beyond your own, it's likely to be the kind of character or the weight of a part. And by weight of a part, I mean a series lead or the lead in the film that you're not going to be cast as, because your experience is not yet at that level. Again, try to not jump to the top of the staircase. The first step is having a small part and doing well in a small part and delivering an interesting character that will take you down the path. George Clooney didn't arrive on the scene as George Clooney the way that he is today. I just saw George Clooney in an episode of The Golden Girls from back in the 80s, where he had just a couple of lines being the nerdy nephew sidekick of the guest actor that was on the show.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. Hey, Dave, you're still there, right?
I am, yes.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure if we lost a connection there. So let's say if somebody is they're fortunate enough, let's say if somebody does a TV commercial and they want to add that to their reel. So what are some of the ways that you would recommend people actually getting a copy? Now, is that something that your company offers?
Yeah, commercials are interesting. They often don't have a scheduled time slot unless you're in a Super Bowl commercial, and we know that it's going to play during the Super Bowl. It's really sort of hard to figure out or find out when your commercial is going to air. When someone is booked on a commercial, often there's a department at the advertising agency called traffic that knows when the blocks of time are contracted whether they're regional or national, whether they're prime time or
just
off
local.
hours, and you can sometimes get a sense by doing a little bit of research when your commercial might be airing, generally speaking. But locating and finding an individual commercial is really, really hard. We do provide a recording service, but we get commercials typically because somebody said, "Oh, I was on a commercial that aired on ER, or I'm sorry, on Grey's Anatomy last night, and could I get that commercial?" Yes, because my company records all of the network dramas and comedies, we would have that commercial. But commercials are a little harder to locate. There is, for many commercials, an outlet called iSpot TV, where some advertising agencies post their current campaigns, and an actor can locate their commercial there. Often these types of uses are protected on the internet so that you can't download them, or it's difficult to get the images. Because we work with many different types of content acquisition, we're able to actually get just about anything that you can see from any content source.
So it sounds like then really the best thing to do would be for people to contact you and see if you could possibly get a copy of it for them.
There are a number of different ways that we can help in the hunt for commercials. There are some outside agencies that I work with as well, with some more difficult challenges every once in a while, particularly with commercials, and this is when this often comes up. Someone has been fortunate enough to be on a commercial that was a national, and it's gone through its current cycle, and they believe or have been told that their commercial is still running or aired during a particular time slot on a particular channel. And we have some companies that we use that actually can do those kinds of searches and locate and determine whether or not a particular program aired. I did that recently for a mother who had two sons that were in two different commercials, or no, in the same commercial. And so we were talking about maybe $15,000 of payment that would be due if in fact the commercial had aired even once outside of its contracted time slot.
Wow. And so is there a different fee that your company charges for something like that, as opposed to saying, "Hey, I'm going to be on this television show. Can I get a recording of that?"
My company generally provides a service that we call AirCheck, and that service is actually also provided through Breakdown Services. And at the Actors Access website, you can scroll down about halfway down the page. There will be a picture of a hand with a DVD standing off of a finger. That will take you to the AirCheck online order form. But we can schedule recordings and provide copies of pretty much anything that's scheduled on television or that's streaming on the web. We can provide DVD copies. We can provide MOVs in standard definition or in high definition. Prices vary. The services that we also provide include excerpting from those programs, but we can discuss that later. As far as commercials go, if one were to know that you were on a Super Bowl commercial, we would record the Super Bowl for you. We'd give you a high-definition recording of your commercial, and that price for that would be the same as the recording for a television show. So
would you mind sharing that with people, just so they have a general idea?
For a television program, it's $30 for a DVD recording, $40 for a MOV, and $50 for a high-def file. Now, for something like a commercial, we would treat it more like an excerpt from a longer program. We would treat it more like a scene as opposed to as a complete show. So you could get just your 1 minute commercial in high definition for $35 from us.
And just for full disclosure, actually, I hired you all to record my episode of Gotham, and
Yes,
it's an incredible service because sometimes people will try to record it on on DVD if you can. It just gets very tricky to do it that way, and honestly, I thought it would be more economical. It will look better, and I don't have to worry about it. I can just tell you what the show is and what the name of the episode is, and boom, it's done, and it's very easy.
Thank you, Aaron. In today's world, a lot of actors, they have devices, they have computers, they have phones. They know that content exists out in the universe. I mean, your episode is available at iTunes. But unfortunately, a lot of these places where the content lives, they're copy protected in such an extreme way that there isn't a way for you to buy that show for $1.99 or $2.99 and then be able to actually edit it. The process that a naive actor sometimes goes through is, well, why would I want to pay $40 or $50 for something? I can just get it for $2 or $3 on iTunes, and then they find out that it's copy guarded and copy protected, and they can't edit with it. So they're going to send their iTunes file to a friend, but their friend can't open it because iTunes also digitally thumbprints the material, so you can't share that file either. So not only can the friend not help you edit it, they can't even see it at all. Then the actor decides, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy a software that can help me edit it. So you have to remove the copy guards and everything, and that's going to cost $50 to $100 depending on the software that you get. Then you find out that your computer doesn't have the right kind of specifications to be able to run that software. Then you find out that it's not in the right form for you to be able to edit with. I mean, it becomes a domino effect that actors that try and do the work themselves end up spending not only hundreds of dollars, but many hours of time and frustration trying to get a tool because they didn't trust someone else to do it for them.
Yeah, and well, getting back to the demo itself. So let's say you've got pieces put together, things are edited. What are your recommendations? Because a lot of people have a lot of different ideas as to what should be at the very, very beginning.
Okay, good question. The way that we start all of our reels typically is with your name, white on black. We generally don't include union affiliations or anything. Any need to do that is just going to highlight one of two things: either your lack of experience or your insecurity about the level of experience that you have. Let the work speak for itself. If you give a good performance, people will Taft-Hartley you into the union. Okay. So
actually, excuse me, Dave, would you just quickly explain so everybody knows exactly what Taft-Hartley means?
Sure. The union has membership requirements that a producer must follow. Someone that is producing a professional production under a SAG contract is required to use SAG contracted actors. Now, there are ways that they can have people who are not yet in the union participate. It's basically a waiver type of system called Taft-Hartley, and that's the name of the law that applies to that particular waiver process. It means that though you are not in the union right now, this particular participation will qualify you toward joining the union, and you have a specified period of time in which to register and enroll in the union to become a member in full standing.
And you will get paid union wages, and you are treated like a union member when you are Taft-Hartley for that particular project.
It is my understanding, though I'm not an expert in that area, not being an actor myself, but I believe that is true and correct. There are other ways that one can qualify for union eligibility, and there are a lot of ways today that one can accrue credits toward your membership.
Right.
And there there was a voucher system previously where you would get three
vouchers, right?
Vouchers and qualify for eligibility to become a union member. But now there are actually SAG contracts that allow one to participate in even new media or web-based content that can fall under the criteria of the purview of SAG and get your eligibility for union membership. The union has made it very easy to become a union member today.
Yeah, well, they want, and once again, full disclosure, I'm a vested member of SAG and AFTRA as well, and even though they're merged, they still have separate pensions and things like that. But so you're saying though that you don't recommend a union actor to put SAG-AFTRA under their name on the first credit slide?
On the opening page, I don't believe that it's necessary. In my experience, what that does. Information is like a two-edged sword. It's like handing an apple to somebody. They're going to look at it. They want to know what they're supposed to do with it. And when you put a label up there, whether it be SAG-AFTRA or whether it be the names of the television productions or the movies that are included in your demo or whatever it might be, you're inviting the viewer to do something with that information, to process it, to think about it, to put it in context, to imagine what that might be from, to remind them of something that may or may not be the correct thing, particularly if the name of the movie or film project that you were in is very much the same as something that they might know. My wife has written a screenplay called Blowback, and we were just preparing a submission to a production company who has a project called Blowback in production. It's a different project altogether. And again, the naming and the labeling can only serve to create confusion. And the purpose of a demo is to focus people on your performance.
And you know what's really so interesting about that, and I hadn't thought of it in this way, but let's say you're taking a clip, let's just say from a movie that you did, and you had a really good scene in this movie, and let's say the movie got panned. It really was not received well. People just said horrible things about it, and it didn't do well. Combination of all those things. But your scene was good, and that's why you want to include it in your reel. And I think your idea is very interesting, because if you label the name of that movie at the very beginning under your name, people might look at it and go, "Oh, that was a horrible movie," and now all of a sudden you're potentially being, thought of in a negative way, or even if it wasn't, panned or anything like that. Maybe somebody just had a bad experience with that director or that producer or that casting director who was involved with it, and it is interesting. Maybe there is something to be said for making it simple, letting people see your work, let that be the decision that people use, or people use that as their decision as to whether they want to work with you or not, as opposed to putting other things that could just clutter things up and get in the way. So for that very first slide, it's going to be your name. Do you have contact information on that first slide as well?
Generally not, only because often the place where actors are posting their demos are at sites or locations where that information is already available through the Actors Access website, or if your content is posted at your agent or manager's website. They already have sort of that contact information. But with that said, I will always defer to the representative, the way that the rep is comfortable in labeling things, the way that the rep is comfortable in having information posted or not posted, because there are some reps, because of how they share files, they may send a file through Dropbox or something, and they want their contact information to appear on their client's reel. It's a simple thing to change and to have available. There isn't sort of a one-size-fits-all answer to a lot of this. There are people that will have differences of opinion with the comments that I make, including labeling. And there are also times with regard to labeling of shows and scenes and stuff that I'll violate my own rule of thumb. As an example, let's talk about labeling for a second. Let's say for a little while you decided that you wanted to label your appearances. So your clip from Gotham has Gotham in white characters in the lower third, so that we can see that it's from Gotham. And then you have a Grey's Anatomy, and it says Grey's Anatomy. But we already see Ellen Pompeo in the scene with you, so we already know it's Grey's Anatomy. So that you said it's Grey's Anatomy is sort of more information that we need. I already knew it was from Grey's Anatomy. And now it's a couple of years later, and you're updating your demo reel, and because of decisions that you've made and advice that you've gotten and everything, you want to not have the names of those shows on there any longer, because Gotham got canceled a while back, and we don't want to remind people that it's been off the air. But there it is in great big white letters at the bottom corner of your clip. Well, the only solution you have then is to re-edit your scene again. And otherwise, you're going to have some clips that have names and some clips that don't have names. And now the clips that don't have names are going to draw attention to them. Why doesn't this have a name? What show is that? And now the absence of labeling is causing the person to think about something other than your performance.
Yeah.
So you don't want any distractions.
Now I'm curious, though, if somebody decides they want to have the name of the program or the name of the film that they were in, where would you generally recommend that it's placed? At the very beginning of the of the scene, or do you save it for the very end of the scene?
Yeah, typically the way that we will label material, unless we've been directed by an insistent client or an agent or manager that has a particular preference of how they do things, we do not use the show logo sequence. So we don't have the graphics of CSI with the bullet and the fancy music and all that other stuff before your scene happens, okay? It's just drawing attention to, I was in this great big budgeted show, and I'm really, really proud of that, okay? So you make that an important piece of information before you get to your scene. If we label stuff, typically I will take relatively small characters, not unlike a music video, and put the information for about 5 seconds or so in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. And so it will come up when the scene comes up, and after about 5 seconds or so, it will fade away.
Okay, so you like the idea of putting it in at the very beginning of the scene.
Yes.
To let people know what this is, what they're going to be seeing.
Exactly.
Got it. And now, as far as, and it is interesting because I've seen other people's reels and have heard people talk, and sometimes they spend a lot of time and energy and money really fully producing things, and they'll have music in there. They have things just kind of flying around to make it look really interesting. I mean, my thought is if you start adding all of these other things, number one, it's going to, like you've said, it's going to distract people from looking at you. But especially if it's done in an interesting way, then all of a sudden people are going to start looking at it from a production point of view and not even consider your acting performance.
Right. One of the things that a lot of actors who are doing their first reel will say to me when they come in and we get started, it's like, I've watched some of my friends' reels, and there was this one guy that did this thing, and it was really entertaining, and I really, really liked it. Okay, I get it. However, let's talk about, why are you doing this reel, and what do you want to have happen because you've done your reel today? If your goal was to create a reel that would entertain people, know that if we do what your friend did, you will get exactly what it is that you planned out to get, a reel that entertains people. However, if what you want is a reel that will help get you new representation, then let us focus on doing and achieving that. If you're wanting to get your first network co-star credit, let's look at doing a reel that will help you accomplish that. And when you mention music and you mention stuff flying around, typically those flying around things are part of a montage or something. The only person that really, really makes money when effort is put into those types of things is the editor, because a casting director doesn't have time to watch you in 6 different costumes, saying 5 different funny lines, dying 3 different ways. They don't care. They're trying to hire a taxi driver today. and a taxi driver with attitude. And so if the first thing that they see is a character that is a baseball player that is belligerent to his coach, you know what? That's going to be close enough for me to think that we can put you inside of a taxi cab and have you be belligerent to a passenger. You have to realize that in today's casting world, when Breakdown Services posts a casting notice to the community, in 2 hours, they get over 3,000 submissions for that single part.
Actually, Dave, would you mind just explaining to everybody exactly what Breakdown Services is, just so everybody knows?
Breakdown Services is a clearinghouse used by casting directors and producers and networks to facilitate the search for actors for particular projects. Every project has a certain number of parts that will be cast. It may be 10, it may be 20. They may only need 4 or 5 people. Each of those parts has a particular description of what the character is, how many lines, the kinds of personality traits that the character might have. That information is shared with agents, managers, and in some cases the actor community, so people can make submissions to the casting directors who've invited the public to forward their resumes, photos, and video for consideration.
And just so everybody knows, the agents and managers, they pay for this service.
Yes. Breakdown Services, which has been in operation since the 1970s, has evolved over the years. And every agent and manager in Hollywood and across the country uses Breakdown Services to help them find the casting opportunities that are available today for their actors to be submitted for. Now, Breakdown Services is probably responsible for 85% of all of the paid work on television and film in the world. Well, in our world, in the United States and Canada. And separately, Actors Access is a subset of Breakdown Services. It is a sister company to Breakdown Services. And there are also casting notices that are posted at Actors Access, which are casting notices that are available for actors to submit to. The two databases, if you will, overlap at a particular place. It may be 10% of the auditions may have overlap, which means that both agents and managers and actors may be submitting on that same 10%, and the other 90% that are only in Breakdown Services, only an agent or manager can submit on those casting notices, just because the casting directors don't want to be inundated with as many submissions.
Right. And what I've also been told is that sometimes things will end up on Actors Access because maybe they just haven't found the right person when they've gone through other types of services. So they're kind of opening it up now to everybody, not just to the people who've paid for that particular service.
Exactly. And what is interesting about that, because I've had actors ask me, why would on the Actors Access site there be casting opportunities for celebrity names only? Why isn't that just on the Breakdown side? Because surely the agents and managers would be submitting their celebrity names on this casting opportunity. What you have to understand is that the casting director may have included it on Actors Access because they may believe that the casting notices are actually being filtered by the agent and manager, who are not going to share that casting opportunity with their celebrity name because they don't want them doing a reality show, or they don't want them doing a cameo part in a particular project. And so they're keeping that information away from them, or not submitting them on a particular thing. And so it would not be uncommon that a casting director who is trying to cast as wide a net as possible might include something for celebrity names into the pool of actors who are just starting their careers, hoping that somehow the message will get to a celebrity name that might not be submitted otherwise.
Yeah, and another reason, that you definitely want to have a good reel is because quite often on, whether it's Actors Access or 800 Casting or Casting Networks, for all these places, quite often, even when, they say, submit your headshot, they will ask for a reel as well. And so that's why it's really important to have some kind of demo reel so, people can see some of your acting skills and not just a headshot and a resume.
Absolutely. It is very, very important, particularly when you understand that since Breakdown Services does about 85% of the paid work in town, the way that Breakdown is set up, they actually have a few different ways that submissions can be sorted, but the default way of sorting submissions is for the 3,000 or so submissions that will come for any particular casting notice, there will be a certain portion that have headshots and video attached. There will be another portion that only the headshot has been attached. And then there will be another portion that has only just made the submission using the person's name with no attached headshot or no correct headshot and no video available. So if there are 3,000 submissions and the first 1,500 are going to be people that have submitted photo and video, and you forgot to have, or you don't have video to submit, but you want to be considered, you would go after those first 1,500 people. And so you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't have video available to be considered.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on a little bit of a side note, I have heard of some actors who try to illegally get hold of the breakdown services so that they can submit themselves for projects. And just as a very strong recommendation, don't do that. Besides the fact that it's illegal, and I don't even know how much agents or managers pay for breakdown services. I mean, maybe I shouldn't even throw out the figures. Somebody once told me what they thought it was per month. Um, do you have any idea how much people pay for that per month?
Yeah, I don't have direct personal knowledge. It's several $100s a month.
Yeah, I was told that it's even more than five, but I'm not 100% sure, so I don't
Yeah.
quote me on that one. But the point is, I have been told that sometimes just to try to catch people who do, hack in or try to get them illegally, there are times where they will send out phony auditions, and when actors show up for an open call for a certain kind of audition, which is a completely bogus one, then people get into all kinds of trouble. So the point is, if you do have an agent and a manager, let them pay for the service and give you the information. Otherwise, there are other ways of getting information, but do not try to illegally, hack in and get access to it, because it's just not a good way to run your business.
Aaron, that's excellent advice. One has to remember it's a pretty small town once you really understand the relationships and everything that are out there. There are a finite number of agents and managers. There are a finite number of casting directors, and all that for as anxious as actors are to jumpstart their careers, to make sure that they're not missing opportunities or worried that because they're not being submitted, they missed pilot season because they didn't have access to all of the parts that were available this pilot season. You would do yourself more harm by getting a reputation as being a person who is sidestepping the system, who is presenting incorrect information, and you will be remembered for that instead of your talent. There are people I know and casting directors that I know who have talked about credits on people's resumes and how the credits are posted and listed, and I as a desperate actor, I decide that I'm going to include myself on the cast of this great film because they used a lot of extras and nobody would know the difference because there are a lot of people that were uncredited, so I'll just be uncredited. Is one very well-known casting director that I know had an actor that was called in for a movie that she was casting. And the reason that she was brought the person in was they had listed on their credits a movie that she had cast. And so they came in and they read and they met. And at the end of the interview, she said, "So tell me about some of these things that you were in." And the actor began to tell things that they were in. And the casting director very straightforwardly said, "I called you in today because that credit was on your resume. I did all the hiring on that, and you were not there. I do not know you. Please know you have not made a friend here today by lying on your resume."
Yeah, that's not a good idea. Another question though about the reel. So we talked about like the opening slide.
Yes.
Of making it really simple, and then you'll go into either your first video or maybe your only video. But let's say there are a couple of videos in there. What is your recommendation for a transition?
Sure.
From one piece to the other?
Typically the way that I construct a demo is the very first thing that I hope to show to the viewer is the client, the actor, delivering dialogue in as close a bit of coverage as is possible and practical. Their first line may actually be preceded by a setup question, you know, so tell me who ate the cookies. Well, I'll put that underneath your name, so that the other person's line is underneath your name, so that the first words we see coming out of your mouth is, I didn't do it. And it continues from there.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused.
All right.
So, okay, so let's say I'm in a scene with you, okay? And you ask me, in the very beginning of this scene, you were saying to me, did you really eat the cookies?
Yep.
And then my response is, and then I go on for, 10, 15 seconds or 20 seconds responding. So in order to try to highlight me, because this is my reel, it's not your reel, you would, when you say place the words, are you talking about like subtitles or?
Nope. I would have my dialogue. Right. Okay. Tell me who ate the cookies underneath your name at the beginning of the reel. So we see your name in white with black background, and you hear the words, tell me who ate the cookies. And the first picture that we see is you delivering your lines, so that we don't see me at all.
Got it. Okay, so we finished that scene. Let's say there's another clip from something else.
Typically what I'll do when I end the scene is I often like to end, again, on the actor. And sometimes I'll do some editing tricks that might include, just because of the way that something might be edited, is it's a very, very abrupt edit, a really hard cut for the place that we want to finish the scene. And I'll sometimes elongate that final reaction by slowing it down so that it can breathe, so that the rhythm of the scene feels like it finishes, that's the end of the scene, that it did just sort of chop off.
So it's not so abrupt.
Sometimes, again, depending on the scene, I will use particularly if the end of the scene that we've chosen doesn't end with your line of dialogue, I may choose a reaction shot of you from earlier in the scene as you listening to the person saying their last line. Again, so that the last thing that we see is the actor. With regard to editing choices and stuff, let's see, we have a typical scene where the scene starts where you walk in the door and the scene ends where you walk out the door. I may not start the scene at the place where you walk in the door, and I may not go all the way till you walk out the door, even though that's all of the footage. Usually the best way to use a scene is to have the scene start somewhere where things are already in progress, that we know that you already came in the room, that we know that that something else has happened, and now we're like in the throes of the confrontation. So we get to the meat as quickly as possible. It's like striking a match. Okay, we don't go in and open the drawer and get the box of matches and pull out a match and get ready and then strike the match. We start the scene at the striking of the match.
That makes so much sense, because and once again, I keep referring to something you said at the very, very beginning of the session, is that casting directors don't have time.
Right.
You've got to hit them very quickly, and they don't need to see you entering the scene. They don't need to see you walking out. Because time is so limited here, you want to focus in on your work and nothing else, things that will impress them, because typically they're not going to need to cast somebody who can walk into a room and somebody who can walk out of a room. They figure most people can do that. Okay, but then for the actual transition, to go from one piece to the other.
Yeah, I usually use a dip to black Okay, just to sort of create just a moment of negative space between things. Not always. It sort of depends on the rhythm of the scenes that we're using. Sometimes, again, based on the editing flow, I may exit a scene using a hard cut and come in on the next scene with a soft fade in. I will almost never use a cross dissolve. A cross dissolve creates a lot of technical challenges in the future for the actor. Um, First, there are editing considerations when you do a cross dissolve from one scene to the next. Because the way that a cross dissolve works, it actually doesn't end at the moment that you want. Let's see that the scene goes all the way up until your final line, and at the end of your final line, the scene cuts and goes to a new scene. The way that a cross dissolve works, it actually needs additional video material to transition into the next clip, and it also needs additional video material in front of the next clip that it's going to marry together during that cross dissolve. And you can end up with some very, very funky video transitions where another clip sneaks in for just a brief moment. So I don't recommend people use cross dissolves in their transitions in their video editing. Also, in the future, if you don't have the original source files, you're not going to be able to use the material easily because you won't be able to separate them. The image is actually married together with little bits of video from something else.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, do you have any philosophies about when you are arranging, let's say there are four pieces that you have. Do you like the idea of going from something dramatic to something comedic to something more lifestyle? Or do you like to kind of build things up? Or does everything really just depend on the material and there is no set pattern to that?
Yeah, for my approach, I always go back to what are we trying to do and accomplish? What is our goal for this particular client? Your goal is going to be different, Aaron, than Susie's goal for her demo. And what we have to sell and where we want the focus to be is going to be different. But you mentioned putting drama and comedy and changing it up and stuff. That would generally be an approach for a general demo reel for material that you're wanting to share with an agent or manager to sort of show some range. With regard to what material I would include or put first, there are some people that like the idea of putting their most recent work first. My approach is more to put your best work first. And if your best work is still from, that thing that you did 2 years ago, but you want to include something that you've done very recently, include that more recent thing second, but have the first thing that they see be very good work. Next, in the construction of a piece, particularly if you don't have a lot of different material, maybe there are 2 or 3 scenes that you want to use from a webisode that you were in because you want to have a lot of different, or you want to have more material, so you want to make it seem like you've done more work. And you have the idea that you're going to take that webisode, that performance of you being the the basketball coach, and we're going to show something, and then we're going to show the basketball coach, then we'll show something else, then we'll show another quick little thing of the basketball coach, then we're going to show something else, and we'll end with the last basketball coach again. In my opinion, you don't want to do that because you're giving the viewer the opportunity to stop the video once they see the basketball coach come back. You know why you've done it. You wanted to separate them. You thought they were funny. You thought it would punctuate the material. You thought it would keep the pace going. And again, why are you doing this? Are you wanting it to be entertaining? Are you wanting it to be quick and fast? You will get what you want, but if what you want is to keep a casting person interested in your performance, show them the performance, let the performance be over, and then move on to the next thing. If you want to show two pieces from the same project, keep them together, only because you're going to give the viewer the opportunity to decide they don't need to see anything else after that because they've already seen it before.
That's a good point. And actually, two quick things that just popped up for me when you were just talking about webisodes. What a great idea for another place to go to build up your reel, to get information. And there are many places that people can go to find people who are shooting webisodes, in your
Absolutely.
particular area. And I'm trying to think of what the second thing, and you had said it, and it was really interesting. It had to do with doing the webisodes and shooting things back to. Oh, this is what it was. So, what are your thoughts about? Let's say if somebody had a small part, but in a big project that everybody knows. It's a huge film, but it's a small part. And then there's something else that you did where it's a much better part, but it's in something that nobody else knows. It's an independent film or something like that. Is there any advantage to letting people quickly see, yeah, this guy was considered and cast in this huge production? And then, okay, so we grabbed your attention, it puts him into a good category. Now let's show him something that you probably never saw, but it's really showing off his work. What are your thoughts? Which one would you use first?
Yeah, there are a couple of different stylistic approaches that one can take when one has a short appearance in something or something that's very, very memorable, but that's very, very short. And you can use it as just an eye-catching little bit, so that you could start it by having that quick little memorable thing where you're the one that punches and Tom Cruise in the face and knocks him out, and that could go to your name at the beginning. So we see you do the punch and then your name, and then we go to the scene. So it happens fast and quick enough that that it can get us started. It could also be used as a button at the end of a short reel. But typically, if the person that is considering you is looked at your submissions, they're going to look at your resume, and they're going to see that current $100 million film that is still in theaters, and they're going to go, oh, I wonder what he did in that. And they're going to be waiting for it and anticipating it and hope that they're going to see what it is. And, oh, and there it is. And, oh, yeah, they had that cute little bit. Now I know what it is. So often using it as a button at the end of your demo might be a way that I would use that. I wouldn't necessarily need to start with it, although there's a way of doing that.
Mm-hmm. And so for the very last slide, so everything is put together, do you basically repeat what you had on the first slide and just end it with your name again?
Typically, just the name again. Often with people that want to include contact information or representation information, we may put that at the end of the demo. Typically, the length of time at the beginning of the demo, like a rule of thumb, 3 seconds ish or less. At the end, again, 3 to 5 seconds at the most. It doesn't need to be there forever. They can pause it and and copy it down if they need to. I don't see a whole lot of people standing around waiting. Wait a minute, I've got to get a pencil real quick so I can copy this information down. Typically, they'll know how to find you. They'll share it with others and be able to locate you.
Now, is there any advantage of letting people know ahead of time on that first slide how long the reel is? It's 60 seconds or 50, just so somebody going into it says, okay, so I've got 50 seconds here to watch. Or do you not even put that information?
Yeah, I generally don't put that information, again, because what you're doing is why you're sharing the information. You know why you're doing it. And any time that you're making a decision based on the reason why, I will guarantee you the person that's getting it doesn't know why you are sharing it, okay? I'm telling you it's only 60 seconds because I want you to take a whole 60 seconds. So the person that is going to sit down and watch it sees, okay, 60 seconds. All right. The actor doesn't have a lot. It's going to be really short, and so they better knock my socks off in the first 5 seconds.
Got it.
And so they're not even going to watch 60 seconds anyway. Getting back to the idea of be careful about your motivation for doing something. And again, back to my original questions. Why are you doing this, and what do you want to have happen because you've done it? I work with actors at a lot of different categories, many people that are famous that you pay your money to go and eat popcorn and watch them work. About 4 or 5 years ago, one of my actors who has a very, very long IMDb came to work with me and said, look, I want to come in, I want to bring 20 or 30 movies that I've done. I need to shake things up. It's been a little bit slow. I want to put together like a 2 or 3 minute sizzle reel of just a bunch of this work that I've done so that I can send it out to some people and send them a little note and see if I can't shake the bushes a little bit. And realize that 20 to 30 films, finding just a little bit, we're going to be talking maybe 10 seconds or less, from each of those films is going to take a while. And I bill by the hour at $100 an hour, so it's going to be a lot of money. With that said, I said, look, I can do this. It's not a problem. But let's talk about why you're doing it and what's going to happen. We're going to put all this together, and you're going to end up with a 2 or 3 minute demo. And you're going to send a letter out to these people, and they're going to pop it in, and they're going to watch it. And what they're going to see is you, and they're going to recognize you. And here you are in a movie that they know and recognize, and here I am saying a couple of lines. And then we move on, and we're doing another scene. And here you are saying a couple more lines. And here are a couple more lines and a couple more lines. So hire me to say a couple of lines. He said, I can't do that. If I'm not the second or third person after the opening title, I'm not paying my mortgage. And I said, and that's the problem. You know why you're doing this. They don't know why you're doing it. You've reminded them, and maybe they're producing a movie. But what's their motivation? Their motivation is to make their movie. Yes, you've reminded them, but all of a sudden they go, wait a minute, I love this guy. Don't we have that part where the guy comes into the gas station and that little funny bit happens, and make him an offer? Well, you made the phone ring. They thought about you, but they made you an offer for something that was way beneath what you want to be considered for. So you have to be really careful about how you organize your material and the message that you're putting out there.
Yeah, those are great points. And I tell you, right before we get to the questions that have been sent in to me to ask you, just to kind of maybe encapsulize, if there's somebody who is putting together their reel, and let's say they don't have access to you.
Hmm.
This is more of like a general working preparation for an editor.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that somebody, sit down, watch whatever film they have or whatever piece they have, try to time code it ahead of time and see, okay, so almost do like a rough paper cut. I don't know what the exact term is, but basically say, okay, so I'm thinking maybe come in like at the first 30 seconds and then use the next 10 seconds in this scene and then end it. And just make a note of that and do that for every single clip that you have. And then when you sit down with the editor, you can say, look, here are some ideas that I have. Look, editors, if they're really good, like somebody like you, you're going to have ideas that we would never have, in a million years. But, maybe it would be helpful to at least come up with some suggestions so that if somebody is, let's say, sitting down with you, say, look, here are some of my ideas. This is where I want it to start. This is where I want it to end. I think this piece might go well, after this one. Is that a way to, properly try to prepare as opposed to just sending you 10 different clips of things and say, okay, why don't you put something together for me?
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. There are editors that work different ways, and there are editors that bill differently. I bill $100 an hour, but there are other editors that will do your demo reel. I'll do your demo reel for $2.99, and it'll have up to 5 scenes, and it's a flat rate. As a matter of preparation, it's very helpful if you know where your best scenes are. It will help the editor greatly just in preparing the material to begin their process. And so it's okay if you don't know which of your scenes is the best. These are my 3 favorite scenes, but I don't know which one is the best and which one I should use. The editor can help. The editor should be able to help you make a choice on what is your best performance. But you don't have to go so far as to sit and outline all of the cuts and this is where I would cut out and this is what I would do. I had a client that wanted to be very, very helpful and organized his material and made copious notes about their particular appearance on a reality show, and wanted to let me know every single moment of dialogue and every single look and reaction and the time codes and everything of all of these different moments and pieces. And the email was 5 pages long. and he wanted me to confirm that I had read it, that I knew and understood what he wanted to do, and wanted me to be able to make sure that I could follow the instructions and do it. And because it was our first time working together, I had to follow through and let him know that I'd gotten it and read it and understood it and the whole deal. But the bottom line is, I actually was able to do the edit in a better way than he had been suggesting, in a time that was less than it took me to read the 5 pages.
Uh-huh.
So it's important to know that you can overshare as well. So if you're organizing for an editor, it is very helpful to provide some direction. I play the cop. We arrest the guy. Even if you don't have the exact time code or the time reference, if you're not able to for some reason, give a general idea of what the scene is so that the editor can locate it for you. If you have an opportunity, sitting with the editor can be a very educational process. One of the things that I miss is that today, in today's internet world, I'm doing more and more editing long distance. And I used to sit with a lot of people, and during part of the process, a lot of the conversation that we're having here today would be shared during the actual editing session. And viewpoints about career advancement, about targeting agents or managers, about different kinds of things that could be helpful to someone in promoting their career, and also understanding what it is that I might do and choose in the organization of one's demo reel. That some of that back and forth or educational process is lost when you aren't there in person, and because of that, I'm looking at beginning to do Skype editing sessions for people that are not here in Los Angeles, so that they can sit in on the edit and understand what it is that I'm doing with their content.
I mean, that's a great idea. Now, do you even do like a rough cut and then show it to the client before?
Most absolutely. Yeah, it is very common that if the client is not in the room, that we'll share a version, a recommendation. This is what we propose, and then there may be notes or changes or suggestions made. Often we'll share that with reps as well, who may have opinions about order or other things. But typically, we do pretty well in organizing a proper tool for talent.
And would you? And I know, once again, I'm not trying to pinpoint you here for a number, but if someone is trying to put together a minute and a half reel, they've got 3-4 pieces that they're going to be using.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, would you say that something like that could typically take 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours? Is there any ballpark idea?
Sure. Depends on who's doing the editing. If it's me, and we've got 4 pieces and we're doing a 1-minute reel, it's going to happen inside of an hour, so your cost is going to be $100 or less.
Really?
Which is why I charge $100 an hour, because I can direct you to people that charge less money, and you will pay more money or less money per hour, but you will end up paying more money because they don't get to the finished product as quickly as I do. I've been doing this so long that when I watch a scene down from top to bottom, I already know what it is that I can do to tighten up the scene, where I will start, where I will end, what I will lose, whether or not I'll invert material that might be presented in the scene to best showcase an actor. And it's just my fingers that are having to catch up with my process.
Well, and the other thing too, and I'm not trying to be a spokesperson for you, but the fact is you are asked by managers and agents to work on their actors' reels. So you have not only a clear sense of what the actor should have, but also what agents and other industry professionals are looking for, which makes your job a lot easier, and it makes it a lot more effective for the talent.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really very lucky. I've been doing this a long while. People like the work that I do. We have a lot of repeat business. I have clients that have been with me for over 15 years. I mean, I started working with Mila Kunis when she was 14, and
wow.
Those people would think that, Mila Kunis doesn't need a demo reel. Here about 4 years or so ago, I got a phone call on a Friday afternoon. Her manager was calling up. Mila is with CAA, and CAA had an assignment that they had been working on for 3 weeks, and they were not able to provide the video that was requested. Victoria Burrows, who was the casting director on charge of the project, had given a deadline of the end of that Friday, so I had about 3 hours to provide any samples of Mila dancing. They needed to see her moving and being able to be graceful before they would even consider her to audition for the role in Black Swan.
Wow.
And so, even at that level, there are times when having not only a demo available, but the relationship with someone that knows your body of work and can be responsive to helping you create a tool that can help you be an Academy Award nominated film.
That's incredible. Hey, Dave, let me get, because I promised people I was going to get to their questions, and I know we've gone a pretty long time, but this has been incredible. No, this has been wonderful.
All day.
No, look, I never put a time limit on things because, our goal here is to share as much information as possible. So here's a question, and actually, let me just say, we might have answered some of it already. Well, actually, is it ever appropriate to insert stills in a demo as a way of breaking up the reel? This would be using stills of the actor, maybe as part of transitions, or maybe an official poster from a show or a film. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, in my opinion, a demo is about informing a decision maker, whether it be casting, producers, or the network, about you as an actor. And typically, those acting opportunities are you to speak and deliver dialogue for them. Okay, so anything that doesn't achieve that level of information, in my opinion, is a distraction. You may like the way that you looked in this one particular close-up and the way that they shot it, and it's really beautiful, and don't you see that tear running down my cheek? And that's really a special moment because that was acting. But the person that's watching it, again, is looking for a belligerent cab driver today, and that really great moment that you know why it's included isn't helping them. So with regard to still pictures and other types of content, posters, advertising, promos, those things are helpful if you have a different agenda in mind. If you're doing a PR tour or junket, or if you are supporting information for a film festival or something like that, yes, there may be quotes and reviews and posters and standing out in front of the Egyptian at Sundance that are relevant. But for a demo reel, it's about the acting. It's about you. Okay. Keep the focus on that.
Okay, and actually there were about like 7 others, but I think we've really covered this. So making a demo reel for actors just starting off with limited resources, we talked about finding students, going to all different kinds of places where you can try to put something together yourself, or web, things on the web. What are casting directors looking for in a demo reel? We talked about that. They want to see.
Let me address that real quick here.
Yeah.
What are casting directors looking for? Okay. Yeah. It's sort of related also to a question that I often get asked. How long should my demo be? It should be the right length. Okay. Well, what should be on my demo reel? Well, it should be the right material. Because ultimately, if you think about what it is you're trying to do and accomplish when you are submitting on a project, you are trying to get hired for that project that is listed. That's the reason why you have 6 or 8 headshots and you pick and choose one. It's the reason why in many cases today it is becoming very common to select an individual performance that best matches what the casting director is looking for, so that the very first thing that they see matches what it is that they're casting today.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Another question that popped in: should we play our strengths or be more vulnerable in choosing characters? That's kind of like what we've been talking about. Certainly, use your strength, and whatever will sell you the best. And like you were saying too, like having multiple headshots, you might need to have multiple reels. Now, in smaller markets too, it's a little bit different where quite often having something that's more of a generic reel might be fine just because a lot of the projects that are coming up might be more generic as well, and it's not necessarily a feature film that's being done in a small town or a television show. They might be looking for many different types, whether it's, like I was saying before, like maybe a corporate film, where they need different kinds of characters in there. Um,
Let me address that as well. You said something very interesting, and again, I realize a lot of the viewpoint that I'm sharing comes from the industry as we have it set up here in Los Angeles. But you're absolutely right. In regional markets, sharing a general reel that is maybe a minute and a half or so long, where you have 4 or 5 things that are maybe 20 seconds or so long, is an appropriate tool to use for casting, and your reps are more likely to be able to pitch you in a way that is less common here in Los Angeles, because there are fewer people that are being submitted in the local regional markets, and in signing with a new agent or manager, they're wanting to have you become known by the FinCannons or the other people that are doing multiple projects. And have them know the diversity of skill level that you might have.
Excuse me, just to kind of jump in there, just so everybody knows, the FinCannons it's a big casting company. It's a family. It's Mark and Craig and Lisa Mae Fincannon. They used to be, or they are based in Wilmington, North Carolina, and they have grown tremendously, and they do a lot of casting, not only in North Carolina, but in Atlanta and Louisiana. And yeah, I mean, and for a lot of people also in smaller markets, they might not even be signed with anybody. They use companies like Actors Access or 800 Casting or Casting Networks, those kinds of places, to submit themselves. A lot of people are just marketing on their own. So especially in a secondary market, it might be really helpful for you to be able to stand out and show a wider variety of things that you've booked. You're a working actor. You've done a lot of different things, as opposed to focusing in on one particular role, because then you're going to be kind of hoping, well, when that role comes up, great, I've got it. But if I only can have one demo reel at this point, it might be something that is a little bit more generic, just to let people know, yeah, this person's an actor, they booked a bunch of things, I can see what they're able to do.
Absolutely. And with regard to regional markets and stuff, a lot of actors want to come to Los Angeles thinking that all of the work is here. And quite honestly, though, we have great weather. It's 90 degrees here today. Not all of the work is being produced here in Los Angeles anymore. And a lot of my LA actors are actually finding ways that they can work in regional markets, because the opportunities for them to get in front of the producers and casting directors in those regional markets results in casting opportunities that are much easier for them to get. We've been doing a lot of work with one particular agency in the Chicago area who on a weekly basis has at least 2 or 3 of their clients on each of the 4 different shows that are being produced in the Chicago market.
Wow, that's incredible.
And so
Yeah.
for an actor early in their career trying to get their first co-star or guest star, be aware of who are the people that are producing things that use people like you, and find a way of targeting those casting directors so that they can become aware of you performing the kinds of things that you do best. You want to put your best foot forward. If you have an opportunity to do and create and produce something that reflects that, and you can find the audience that hires that, you've done yourself a great service in becoming a working actor.
Now, David, you mentioned something, and actually it brought up a question for me. If somebody is coming from a smaller market, a secondary market, and they decide, you know what, I want to go to LA now, do you think it's better for them to have created a reel ahead of time in order to try to find a manager, find an agent, or do you think it might be better? Maybe you should just wait, get to LA, start trying to get some work in the LA market first, then put the reel together?
Here is my advice about that. Too many actors delay certain decisions because they don't have something. Okay, or they postpone because I'll wait until something happens. So I'll wait until I get to LA before I put together a reel. Well, why? Because are you waiting to work with actors that are in LA that are going to be at a different level than the actors that you would work with in your local market? Because it's likely that the community of actors that you find in LA are going to be pretty much at the level that you're at right now. Even if you get into acting class, you're not going to be acting with the guys that are series regulars on a show. You're going to be acting with people that are at your level. So why would you wait to start creating content until you get to Los Angeles?
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. And certainly you will have a much better chance of getting representation if people can see some of your work ahead of time. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
I had the mother of a child actor from the Chicago area who has done some commercials, who has had the good fortune in those commercials. She did a series of commercials for Walmart where she has quite a number of lines. And we actually used those commercials and recut them as a sample of a scene for her so that someone could see her basically acting. And we had a couple of other things that were short films or whatever that she'd been involved with, and so forth. And the little girl is cute as a button. And they were coming to Los Angeles for pilot season. Now, it's a very common thing. There are a lot of junkets that are out there that organize tours that come to Los Angeles for pilot season to introduce you to people and get you involved in classes and tell you what you need to know and maybe get you in front of some agents or managers or try and get you signed with people or, you know, have opportunities. And you have to understand that a lot of businesses that are out there catering to actors, their agenda is to be in business catering to actors. And they may have good information. They may, in fact, be able to do and deliver certain things that they're talking about or promising. But in many cases, it's going to require that the actor follow a process that's very, very predictable. You have to be trained, you have to have talent, you have to have skill, you have to have the tools to then be able to market yourself, and you have to have the persistence to be able to compete in town. To believe that you're going to show up and in 6 weeks, get signed to your first series is really unlikely. So you would be best to apply the same questions that I mentioned earlier. Why are you doing this, and what do you want to have happen because you've done it, to your decision to come to Los Angeles? Why are you doing this? Well, because I need to be where the action is happening. Okay, if that's the only thing that you answer when you move to Los Angeles, that's what you will have. You will be in Los Angeles where the action is happening, and you will not know what you need to do, and you will not have any other tools or anything to be able to work and help you, and you won't have a goal or a target to accomplish. Why are you doing whatever it is? Why are you shooting a scene? Why are you moving to Los Angeles? Why are you doing a demo reel? Because I need to be very specific with your answer. I want it to result in me be very specific with your answer. And then that will inform you of decisions that you need to make that can go about supporting that process.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're 100% right with that. And that's, look, this is a business, and you need to treat it like a business, and you have to be setting goals for yourself, and knowing very specifically what you want to attain and how to go about doing that. And like you were saying, certainly having the materials is a major, major part, because you can be the most talented person in the world. If people can't see it, then it's not going to happen for you. Hey, Dave, first of all, I just wanted to thank you so much. I know we spent more time than I had asked you to, and I just can't tell you how much I appreciate all of your information. Your website address will be listed here, but I just want to verbally tell people they can go to, it's editplus.tv.
Yes, that's spelled out, editplus.tv. And we also, I think, are providing a link to some samples of how we address certain kind of challenges that actors have in working with their material. Different actors, you work to try and get copies of your material, but you don't control the process. Maybe you got cut out, or your lines are on another actor's face, and how do you make use of that, and how do you make it work? And we'll just show you some of the reasons why people decide that trusting us a little bit can help them with their careers.
Well, you provide an incredible service for people, and I am sure we will be working together again in the near future. So anyhow, I just wanted to thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to share such a wealth of knowledge with everyone.
Aaron, thank you very much for the opportunity.
See you, Dave.
All righty, bye-bye.
So everybody, I just wanted to say that was an amazing workshop, and just wanted to say Dave is just incredible. I can't wait for next month. We're going to have another really interesting online workshop. A couple quick things for those of you who are interested in being a part of my private mentoring program, where I work with people one-on-one online. You can just go to howtomodel.com/coaching. And I also have a season pass membership that will allow you to save over 70% of the cost of watching every online workshop, getting all the bonuses. And you can find out all about that at my website, howtomodel.com. I'm Aaron Marcus. This was another just an incredible workshop. I learned so much, and I can't wait to talk with you again soon.